Center for Policy Dialogue পক্ষ থেকে আপনাদেরকে আজকের এই ডায়ালগে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। On behalf of the Center for Policy Dialogue, I would like to welcome you to this dialogue on securing green transition of the textile and ready-made garments sector in Bangladesh. So this program has been undertaken in collaboration with the Embassy of Sweden. We have been implementing this program for the last 2 years or so, and we had a number of activities. We had also a launching ceremony in 2022, and today we are going to present some of the findings of the study that the study had undertaken surveys, interviews, discussions with key persons. So we are very happy and honored to have a distinguished set of guests here. We have Dr. Shamsul Alam, Honorable State Minister for Ministry of Planning, Government of Bangladesh, as the chief guest. We have two guests of honor. His Excellency Mr. Charles Whitley, Ambassador, Head of Delegation of the European Union to Bangladesh. We have Her Excellency Ms. Alexandra Berg von Linde, Ambassador, Embassy of Sweden in Bangladesh. She is on her way. She will arrive anytime. We also have distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Thijs Oostra, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Bangladesh. We have Mr. Shahidullah Azim, Vice President, Bangladesh Garments Manufacturers and Exporters Association. And of course, we have distinguished guests and friends from the media in front of us. Once again, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So, and on CPD's behalf, there will be a presentation, and then we'll open the floor for comments and questions after the distinguished speakers make their interventions, and then we'll end with our chief guest's speech. So just to give a context, small context, that why this is important. From the name you can see that we are stepping into a new phase of our interaction or activities in the sector, because the sector, which is an export-oriented sector, that has been one of the important driving forces of Bangladesh's economy. It has been a source of foreign exchange, a source of employment and income, and also empowerment of Bangladeshi women. And our exports of ready-made garments go to a number of destinations, including the European Union, USA, Canada, Australia, many advanced countries, and even some developing countries. And Bangladesh has been fortunate to enjoy the duty-free, quota-free market access in the European market and many other advanced countries. And as you know that European Union's GSP facility and under the initiative of Everything But Arms initiative, Bangladesh has been enjoying DFQO market access. And of course, the industry has flourished thanks to the entrepreneurs and workers, and also policy support from the government of Bangladesh. But as you know that Bangladesh is going to graduate from the least developed country category in 2026, and it has also ambition to become a middle income country by 2031. What does it imply? It implies that Bangladesh is stepping to a new terrain where compliance will be much more stringent. Once we graduate from LDC category, the benefits or the international support mechanisms will be withdrawn, and duty-free, quota-free market access will be also gone from many countries. There will be some facilities afterwards, but there is discussion on GSP plus. Some countries have also extended duty-free, quota-free access, like Canada and UK. But there will be some opportunities. But for that, welcome. Thank you. Good morning. For that, Bangladeshi sector, this sector has to be much more, compliant, and for that we have to also prepare. And one of the important ways for preparation is to go green. As you know that globally countries have undertaken commitments for net zero by the middle of the century. In COP26, almost all the countries, advanced countries, even developing countries, they have made their commitments that some by 2050, but some by 2060 or 2070 even. So they will be, achieving net zero. And how to achieve that? By cleaning the polluting industries and also cleaning all our activities. Bangladesh, as a least developed country, has also taken commitments. It has nationally determined contributions where it has made commitment for voluntary reduction from some sectors to reduce emission. But there is also conditional commitment that if we get support from the international community, we can increase our reduction of emissions. So, but on the whole, in the coming days, we will have to be more, compliant, not only in case of labor issues or building safety, but also on environmental issues. So that is the background. We have seen that many factories within the sector, within the textile and garment sector, they have taken various initiatives to clean and to green their industries, and they have acquired several types of certificates, because during our study, you have also seen that since there are no universal definition of green in the context of Bangladesh, they have taken many certificates. We know about much widely known is the LEED certification, but it is not also widely accepted. Different buyers, different brands have their own criteria. But we have seen that the entrepreneurs are taking initiative, they're concerned, and they also need various kinds of support. So all of these will be discussed in our presentation. So I would not go into the details because the presentation has. But again, this has been a study on the basis of interviews, in-depth interviews. On our behalf, Mr. Muntasir Kamal, Research Fellow, he will make the presentation. Meanwhile, I would like to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Alexandra Berg von Linde, Ambassador, Embassy of Sweden, Bangladesh. She has joined us. Thank you very much. We just mentioned that we have been implementing this study in collaboration with the Embassy of Sweden. With this, I would like to hand over to Muntasir. And আপনারা যদি একটু সামনে থেকে সরে যান কাইন্ডলি, একটু পিছনে যে ছবিগুলো তুলেন তাহলে দেখা যাচ্ছে না আপনাদের সামনে যারা বসে আছেন। হ্যাঁ, এক সাইডে ওনারা কিন্তু দেখতে পাচ্ছেন না, সাইডে থেকে তুলেন। জাস্ট 1 মিনিট দিলাম, 1 মিনিটে শেষ করেন। I think it's fine. ঠিক আছে, হ্যাঁ হয়েছে। All of you are so such a star that they don't. Okay, so Muntasir, I think you are set to go. Yeah. So Muntasir will try to present within 25 minutes. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for setting the context. You have made my life easier because I won't have to go through those slides. So I'll dive right into what we were trying to look at through this study. Is it okay now? Okay, yeah. So I'll just dive right into the objectives of our study. So we had basically 4 specific objectives when we did the research for this particular study. We wanted to see what are the state of the green practices in the textile and RMG sector in Bangladesh, and we wanted to build a nationwide factory level evidence base. And of course, while doing that, we wanted to see what are the barriers and what are the drivers of the said green transformation that the textile and RMG sectors are going through. And maybe we wanted to look at whether these types of barriers or the drivers are symmetric across the various sizes of factories. Obviously, when we went through it, we wanted to see what is the state of the factory's knowledge, interest, and capacity while they're adopting these various sort of green transition initiatives. And of course, we wanted to look it from the workers' perspective as well. What do they know about these green initiatives, and how do they perceive the benefits of it? But overall, we wanted to, come up with a set of recommendations that might help in, securing the green transition process of the textile and RMG sector in Bangladesh. So, as Madam Dr. Fahmida Khatun has already mentioned, that we actually conducted a series of surveys, KIIs and FGDs. So we actually went to 403 factories in 9 districts of Bangladesh, and the survey took place between June 2022 and November 2022. The number of RMG factories were 182, while the remainders were textiles. And obviously, while doing the survey, the sampling process followed the definition that the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics follows while conducting their survey of manufacturing industries. So the micro factories, they contain 10 to 24 employees. The small and medium one contains 25 to 49, and the large factories goes beyond that. In fact, we also surveyed factories that had nearly 16,000 workers. So we basically tried to cover the whole spectrum of factories that Bangladesh has. We also, during the survey, we also conducted nearly 120 semi-structured KIs of the owners and managers of those factories. Additionally, we also conducted several other in-depth interviews with the brands, buyers, industry insiders, managers, and sustainability officers. Basically, the people who are, kind of in charge or in really deep in the sustainability business. We conducted 7 different focus group discussions with in Dhaka and Chittagong. So we basically involved factory owners, the senior managers, and the people who are involved with the sustainability issue, as well as workers and supervisors and industry experts. And finally, when we came up with the preliminary findings of the study, we held 2 EGMs with representatives from both textile and RMG factories. And obviously, we also involved the brands and buyers so that we can validate what we found and maybe receive feedback from them. So when we tried to, analyze the findings that we got through our survey and the discussions and interviews, so the central concept that we used is the greening of industries. And by that, what we mean is the process. Because when we are talking about the green transformation, green industries or green products also come up, but in our study we basically tried to focus on the process that the factories or industries go through if they want to reduce their environmental footprint or impact through their production processes or maybe sourcing and other things that are affiliated with their supply chain. And when we looked at the benefits, we basically tried to see it through 3 lenses. We wanted to see whether there are any economic benefits, whether there are any environmental benefits, and maybe the social benefits that basically covers the side of the workers and such. And obviously, as I mentioned, that the greening industries or the greening of industries basically deals with the process. So we wanted to look through what is happening in terms of pollution control or maybe resource or energy efficiency, or what is happening in terms of chemical and waste management and so on. But when we actually go through the actual findings, maybe this will become a bit clear since I'm going quite quickly. So first, let me just give you a general idea of what we surveyed. As I already mentioned, that we basically classified the factories into 3 classes. So large factories actually consisted nearly 20.6% of the surveyed factories that we did. Small and medium ones considered a little over 21%, and basically we found a significant portion, which is nearly 58%, basically are micro categories. So one of the key reasons of taking so many microfactories was we wanted to cover the entire spectrum of factories, because if we don't want, if we can't actually green the whole industry in an inclusive manner, then I don't think the process will be sustainable. So maybe we will have to take them into account as well. And obviously within the RMG factories, we also did a tier-wise distribution. So while doing this tier-wise distribution, we followed a definition that was proposed by ILO. And within this, obviously, we found that the tier 1 RMG factories that are basically located within EPZs, they're large in size and they have direct contact with foreign buyers. They were approximately 7.69% within the RMG factories. The tier 2 factories, obviously, they are located outside EPZs. They can be large or medium, but they have direct ties with the foreign buyers. And they actually consisted a substantial portion of our surveyed factories, more than 30%. However, the tier 3 factories, they actually consisted of the overwhelming majority of our surveyed RMG factories. So these are located outside EPZs, can be varying in size, but they have no direct foreign buyer relations. And when we went to the factories, obviously we also held interviews with the workers and supervisors. So in total, we basically interviewed more than 4,500 workers. And if we look at the table, or maybe just focus on the large RMG factories, then we can see that nearly 60% were female respondents and 41% were male. And if you look at the demographic profile, that you'll see that majority of the interviewed people were actually within the youth category. So nearly 1/4 of them were aged between 21 to 25 years. And then the second majority consisted of people who were from 26 to 30 years. So a massive presence of youth is found in the surveyed people. So if we now just move into the awareness regarding the overall greening process or the greening certification thing, then what we found that the large factories are more likely to be aware regarding the green certification. And when we mean green certification, we obviously include green building certification as well as the other product or process related certifications as well. So as we can see from this picture, the large factories, nearly more than 80% of them actually knew about green certification related process, but as we move down the sizes, the level of awareness decreases. But when we asked the workers whether they know about the green practices, we also found a similar picture. In large factories, the level of awareness was much higher compared to the small and medium or the micro level ones. And we also asked them, okay, so what do you think are the benefits of going through this overall greening process? So in general, the major 3 things that came up is, if we go through the green transition or the green transformation, then it may reduce the health hazards that workers may face. It can improve their productivity, and of course, it can, since health hazard reduce, it can reduce their health or medical related cost. And we obviously asked the factory owners and the top level managers, okay, so you're going through a lot to get these green certifications. So what motivates you? So the major factors that they mentioned is that they do it by themselves. Self-motivation came up as the major factor that why it drives factories to go through the green certification process. And obviously there were other market-driven factors such as requirement from buyers and a particular desire for competitiveness, which means that they think if they attain this sort of certifications, it will give them a competitive edge. Interestingly, what we found that the government regulations, they didn't come as a significant factor in terms of attaining this green certifications. Now, if we go through the green measures that the various factories take, we found basically we tried to cluster them into 4 major areas. Okay, so where the firms are investing in terms of their sustainable practices. So in the area of energy, we found that the most firms are investing in energy conservation and renewable energy, and in terms of building level energy meters. So monitoring of energy use has become a quite significant issue. In terms of water, the building level water metering, that has become quite important. In terms of air and dust pollution, these two have become the most important ones. And chemical and waste management within this cluster, solid waste management and wastewater management came as the most significant. So now if we look at which sort of factories are investing where, then we can simply find the previous dynamics as well, that the large factories are doing better in terms of taking green related measures, obviously. But curiously, what we found, in fact, within large factories, the factories which are not certified or do not have any sort of certification, they are also taking various sorts of initiatives in terms of the sustainable practices and greening. So that was quite interesting. And obviously we will see in some instances that the medium and small and the micro factories are also trying to be investing or take some practices in the sustainability areas as well. Now if you look at the electricity usage pattern, we will find that across the micro factories or the small and medium factories, their dependency on the grid, electricity from grid, is quite high compared to the larger factories, because the large factories either have captive power, or some of them are obviously investing in renewables as well. And if we go through the RMG factories, then the picture becomes quite similar as well. The tier 3, which are obviously outside EPZs and obviously can be varying in high, they have the highest dependency from grid. And if we move along the tiers, then we will see that the tier 1 factories, which are inside EPZs and large, and they have direct ties to foreign buyers, they actually have the least dependency on grid. And if you look at the amount that the factories are investing, then we will see that the large factories obviously invest significantly more in terms of volume. However, if you look at the volume of green related investment, the proportion of green related investment in total investment, then the finding becomes a bit more interesting. So while we can see that the total amount invested by the larger firms have been quite high compared to the small, medium or micro factories, if you look as a proportion wise, then the picture becomes actually the opposite. It means that the smaller or micro factories are investing a major share of their total investment in greening related initiatives. This maybe has a significant, what we call a base effect, because whatever they are investing a very little amount, but they are trying to invest more of that amount in greening related initiatives, while the larger and other factories may have various other sort of investments that they have to make, which might not be related to the greening or the sustainability issues. And obviously we'll have to ask the workers, okay, so you are going through this process, so what benefits are we getting? So what we found, that the worker in large firms, they are more likely to meet their production targets. And as we have already seen, that the large firms, they actually are doing better in terms of greening practices. So perhaps we can attribute this better productivity to the greening practices as well. And in terms of absenteeism due to sickness, we will see that, okay, the picture becomes quite similar. It is better in larger factories compared to the smaller and micro ones. Once again, it can be attributed to the better greening practices within larger factories as well. So in terms of benefiting the workers, obviously what we can see, greening practices can obviously can bring benefits for the workers. And obviously, as I have already mentioned, that the reduced health hazards or medical costs and improved productivity were identified as the top 3 benefits that the workers may get. And interestingly, anticipatedly, the owners and managers expressed that the transition to green practices would lead to increased production efficiency among workers. And in terms of the initiatives that are usually taken from the KIs, we see that the majority of the initiatives that take place in terms of air quality or reducing noise pollution and sustainable practices that prioritize the health and safety of the workers. Now we probably move on to the most important part of today's discussion, what are the barriers. So we tried to cluster the barriers that we found through our survey and the FGDs and KIs into 4 sections. So So what are the policy regulatory ones, what are the institutional ones, what are the factory level barriers, and what are the market related barriers. So when it comes to the policy and regulatory barriers, we actually found three major dimensions. That there are currently challenges in the policy and regulatory frameworks, essentially meaning whatever the existing environmental policy framework is, this needs to have the clearly defined goals, so that the firms can follow their sustainable practices. And obviously there is a need for additional policy support and incentive so that more investment can go towards renewable energy generation. It also came up during our discussions that there is a lack of harmonization of policies and regulations. Particularly, there is a lack of specific policy options and strategic direction when we want to, address the issue of the trade-off or the synergy between a green transition of industrial sector and economic growth. And obviously, it all came up that a holistic plan is required if you want to, address the green transformation and sustainable growth issue while keeping the welfare of the workers in mind. And we also found that when there is an uncertainty regarding the policies, it makes the investment decision more difficult for firms. And when it comes to greening, obviously the investment requirement is quite huge. So if there is uncertainty in a regulatory and policy environment, it becomes difficult for firms to engage in large investments. In terms of institutional barriers, one thing that came up repeatedly during our discussions with the factory owners and managers, that there are good policies, but the implementation of them is quite lax. So basically it leads to non-compliance. So the rules and the application of rules should be made more stringent. And obviously it also came up the different implementing agencies that kind of take in charge of this overall green transition process. There is a lack of coordination among them, and it also this lack of coordination is basically affecting the overall coming up with a cohesive industrial policy, green industrial policy. Now if you move on to the factory level barriers, as we already mentioned, that there is in general lack of awareness regarding the whole green transformation or the green transition process. And as we already mentioned, that the large factories are doing better in terms of awareness. However, when it comes to the workers, their understanding of green activity is primarily limited to the physical and the visual aspect of the workplace rather than the actual impact of environment. So this needs to maybe changed in the coming days. And obviously the elephant in the room is the finance related constraints. Access to finance has been repeatedly mentioned that this is the most challenging part when it comes to investing in green initiatives. And this is also particularly challenging, more challenging even for the smaller firms or the micro firms or the firms that are outside EPZs on tier 2 and tier 3, because it can sometimes put them in a disadvantage because buyers or brands tend to avoid them because they cannot invest and they maybe gets branded as a non-compliant firm. And the collateral requirement that is required for taking loans has also been mentioned as a major issue. And within firms, obviously, we can see that in terms of embedding the different sustainability aspects in their workforce or policies, large firms are doing better. While we go through the smaller or medium firms, the scenario gets much worse. And it was also mentioned that there is a lack of skilled human resource when it comes to maintaining the green technologies that are processed. Maybe they are investing, they are actually owning the green technologies that takes place within firms. However, in terms of maintaining them, they all often have to resort to help from outside or maybe sometimes hire foreign professionals as well. So that has been mentioned as a major challenge. In terms of the operational barriers that the factory faces, one thing that particularly is applicable to the smaller or the micro level firms is that they don't operate in their own buildings, they operate through rented buildings. So even if they want to go through the green investments or take some technology, it becomes impossible for them to take them. And additionally, it was also mentioned that the limited demand for the green products in the local industry is also a challenge, because maybe the smaller firms or the micro-sized firms, they cater to the domestic market rather than going to the export-related market. So if there is no demand for green products within the country, then maybe there is a lack of incentive for them to take these initiatives. Now, if you go through the market-related barriers, one thing that obviously mentioned repeatedly, and maybe another elephant in the room, is the absence of premium prices. So as the greening initiatives require a substantial investment, so if the factory owners or if the industry doesn't get premium prices for this investment, it becomes less profitable, and maybe it kind of discourages them. And if there is not enough information on what initiatives to take, what technologies to use, it actually creates a hindrance when it comes to taking the initiatives. Now as we already mentioned the challenges that we found during our study, now we also tried to come up with a set of recommendations on what we can do to address them. So when we go to the policy and regulatory related issues, we think that developing a comprehensive strategy will be most useful. It will cover all the greening related aspects, particularly focusing on the textile and RMG sector. And this development process will have to be done based on stakeholder consultation, and obviously it has to be evidence-based. And of course, since it's a comprehensive strategy, the short-term, long-term goals, indicators, targets, financing, responsibilities, monitoring, etc., all have to be included there. Second, in terms of the policy and regulatory measures, we think that creating a task force or a committee to review the policies and regulations will be most useful. As we have already mentioned, there are sometimes inconsistencies or incoherence between the policies. So if a high-level task force is formed to review the policies and regulations, perhaps this will be solved. We also think that in terms of greening standards and certification, a common framework is extremely necessary, because firms have to take several sorts of certifications and go through several sorts of audits, etc., just to prove that they're environmentally compliant. So why don't we have a uniform standard? And obviously, buyers' consensus on this is a major issue, because as we have already seen that one of the major reasons behind taking a green certification is buyers' requirements. So if the buyers can come up with a uniform or standardized definition of greening, or maybe set a standard, this will be most helpful for firms, because it will reduce their costs. And obviously it will be helpful for the buyers as well, because they have to go through the audits that the firm provides. So if there is a uniform standard, it will be easier for them as well. And of course, in terms of the policy and regulatory measures, the green related certifications, they are quite difficult to take. So providing assistance to the firms to obtain these certifications will be most helpful. In terms of the economic incentives, maybe what we can think is that the market-driven incentives such as tax breaks and subsidies for factories that invest in sustainable production process can be provided. And particularly, we would like to say that small and medium firms should get a major share of this, particularly those that want to invest in effluent ETPs and obtain green certifications. And of course, whenever we are providing such tax breaks or subsidies, it has to be in compliance with the overall sectoral climate goals and the environmental standards as well. And maybe another issue that we can consider in terms of economic incentive is withdrawing the fiscal support to the polluters. So as we can see, currently a lot of polluting industries and maybe fossil fuel based power generation is getting fiscal support of the government. Maybe this should be withdrawn and transferred to the industries that are investing in clean technologies. And of course, in terms of economic incentives, if I don't mention the issue of premium price, we cannot actually have the whole discussion. So obviously, as I've already mentioned, if the factories can get premium prices for their products that were processed through a green cycle, then it will expect it to encourage the investment, And obviously, as I've already mentioned, that the green investment requires a huge amount of upfront cost. Maybe it will be able to compensate for that as well. And obviously, the major role have to be played by the buyers here. The industry associations like BGMA, BKMA, BTM, etc., they have to continuously pursue this agenda. And maybe from our government side, the Ministry of Industries maybe can act as an interlocutor, because such a contentious issue will require a lot of deliberation and discussion. So perhaps they can find play the part of a intermediary in this case. In terms of access of green finance, we think maybe if we can set up a comprehensive system that contains all sorts of information regarding the green finance will be most helpful. It can be online based, obviously. So this portal can provide all relevant information about what are the sources of green finance, how you can apply them, what are the conditions, what are the terms, what documentations are needed, etc. And obviously it has to will need support from all sorts of stakeholders, including the government, private sector, international development partners, and as well as the brands and buyers. We also think that maybe we can establish a credit guarantee scheme for the smaller factories. It will be most helpful. And maybe it can come as a form of insurance or guarantee while they try to take loan for their green investments. And we also think that the Bangladesh Bank currently has a refinance scheme for the green product projects and initiatives. However, the application process and actually getting the fund is quite complicated, so it has to be made more accessible. We also mentioned about the awareness and knowledge related issues, and how there are asymmetry across factory sizes. So maybe we can think of setting up a once again a central database where all information of the greening related process can be stored. It can be developed through a multi-stakeholder approach as well. But where to invest, how to invest, what sort of technologies to use, where do I get the experts? If all sort of information is stored in a central way, maybe it will be most helpful for those who are suffering because of they don't have enough access to information. And of course, behavioral change is a major issue when it comes to taking the green initiatives. So if we can conduct workshops or training sessions and campaigns as well, so we can maybe bring those changes in their values and attitudes. And we also think that the providing technical guidance and support is extremely necessary to mitigate the knowledge gaps that currently exist within the sector. So in terms of technical guidance and support, maybe 3 major areas can be focused on. Maybe how to obtain the different sort of certifications, maybe where the cost savings opportunities are, and of course, since you're going through investment process when it comes to taking the green initiatives, there has to be a business case. So how do we actually develop this business model? So these are the 3 potential areas where technical guidance and support can be provided. Now finally, we come to the skills and capacity development related issues. Obviously, as we have already mentioned, in terms of green industry, availability of skilled human resources have been repeatedly mentioned as a major bottleneck. So what we can do is we can perhaps develop and expand some sort of apprenticeship and mentorship program with the green industries. We can obviously engage the private sector organization that can provide various sort of training and certification related to the green related skills, and maybe we can come up with a mechanism that might incentivize the individuals and the businesses so that they can send their employees or workers in green skill training programs. While doing this sort of skills training programs, obviously the participation of women has to be ensured. And obviously, since this sort of initiative requires a lot of money, well, we can also think about establishing a green skills development fund, which will help the firms to provide the training for their workers on the sustainability issues and the greening issues. In terms of financing the fund, perhaps our buyers or the international development partners and the industry association can contribute. Government can obviously contribute, and maybe we can also levy the high carbon energy sources, or maybe a portion of the green incentives that the firms can get to finance the skills development fund, so that the actually workers and the the employees of the different sort of firms get the necessary skill to actually carry out the overall green transition process. So with these recommendations, I think I can conclude my presentation. So I thank you all for listening patiently.
Thank you, Muntasir Kamal. That was an excellent presentation of the major findings of the study. So I will go to our distinguished speakers, but before that I'll just take 2-3 minutes because there's a request from the media friends. Because of the cameras, they could not take the points or listen to the points which I mentioned. So I'll say a few words in Bangla আপনাদের সুবিধার জন্য। সো আজকে যে আমরা এই ডায়ালগটি করছি টেক্সটাইল এবং রেডিমেড গার্মেন্টস সেক্টরে, টেক্সটাইল এবং তৈরি পোশাক খাতের কিভাবে এটাকে সবুজায়ন করা যায় সেটা নিয়ে, এবং এটার গুরুত্বটা এই কারণে যে আমরা জানি যে টেক্সটাইল এবং রেডিমেড গার্মেন্টস সেক্টর বাংলাদেশের অর্থনীতির জন্য একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ অনুষঙ্গ হিসেবে কাজ করছে। গত প্রায় 3-4 দশক ধরে এই খাতটি যেভাবে বাংলাদেশের অর্থনীতিতে অবদান রাখছে আমরা সবাই জানি। একদিকে কর্মসংস্থান সৃষ্টি এবং বিশেষ করে নারীর ক্ষমতায়নের জন্য, আবার অন্যদিকে আমরা দেখছি যে আমাদের বৈদেশিক মুদ্রা অর্জনের একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ উৎস। এবং বর্তমানে আমরা জানি যে পৃথিবীর বিভিন্ন দেশে আমাদের তৈরি পোশাক শিল্প যাচ্ছে, ইউরোপীয় বাজারে যাচ্ছে, মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রে যাচ্ছে, কানাডা, অস্ট্রেলিয়া, জাপান, অনেক এবং আরও উন্নয়নশীল দেশেও যাচ্ছে। তো আমাদের বাজার একদিকে বিস্তৃত হচ্ছে এবং সেটা আমাদের অনেকটাই যে দারিদ্র্য বিমোচনের জন্য কিন্তু অনেকখানি সহায়তা করছে। কিন্তু এর মাঝে আবার এই যে জার্নিটা হলো এই আমাদের তৈরি পোশাক শিল্পের ক্ষেত্রে, এটা সব সময়ই যে খুব যে মসৃণ ছিল তা না, এখানে বহু ধরনের চ্যালেঞ্জ এসেছে। কিন্তু এই খাতটা বিভিন্ন সময়ে বিভিন্ন ধরনের পদক্ষেপ নিয়ে বিনিয়োগ করে এই খাতটাকে আসলে এগিয়ে নিয়ে গেছে। এখন বাংলাদেশের সামনে আরেকটি আসলে চ্যালেঞ্জ, একদিকে একটা সুযোগ আরেকদিকে চ্যালেঞ্জ। যেমন বাংলাদেশ এখন স্বল্পোন্নত দেশ থেকে উন্নয়নশীল দেশে পরিণত হবে 2026 সালে, এবং আমরা জানি যে স্বল্পোন্নত দেশ কিংবা এলডিসি হিসাবে বাংলাদেশ বিভিন্ন দেশে তৈরি পোশাক শিল্প রপ্তানি করে যে বাজার সুবিধা পায়, বিশেষ করে ইউরোপীয় ইউনিয়নের বাজারে আমরা জানি তারা জেনারেলাইজড সিস্টেম অফ প্রেফারেন্সেস অর্থাৎ জিএসপি, এবং ইউরোপীয় ইউনিয়নের যে আরেকটি সুবিধা ইনিশিয়েটিভ এভরিথিং বাট আর্মসের অধীনে তারা যে বাজার সুবিধাটা পেয়ে থাকে সেটা কিন্তু বাংলাদেশের জন্য খুবই উপকারী। এবং বাংলাদেশের যে এই খাতের উদ্যোক্তারা এবং যারা কর্মী তারা এটার সুযোগটা অনেকখানি নিয়েছে। পৃথিবীর অনেক স্বল্পোন্নত দেশকেও এই সুবিধা দেওয়া হয়েছে, কিন্তু তারা সেটার সুবিধাটা পুরোপুরি নিতে পারেনি, বাংলাদেশ নিতে পেরেছে। এবং যে সমস্ত চ্যালেঞ্জ এসেছে বিভিন্ন সময় কমপ্লায়েন্সের ক্ষেত্রে, সেগুলো আমরা আমাদের উদ্যোক্তারা, সরকার, আমাদের যে শিল্পের সাথে জড়িত যারা কর্মীরা আছেন এবং যারা বায়ার ব্র্যান্ড আছেন তারাও কিন্তু মিলে অনেক সময় সেটাকে আমরা সামাল দিয়েছি। যে এখানে রানা প্লাজার কথা বহুলভাবে উচ্চারিত হয়ে থাকে। এখন সামনের দিনগুলোতে যে চ্যালেঞ্জটা আসবে, একদিকে বাজার সুবিধা ধরে রাখার জন্য, আরেকটা হচ্ছে যে বিশ্বব্যাপী যে সচেতনতা সৃষ্টি হয়েছে আমাদের যে জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের প্রভাব, এটা থেকে বাঁচার জন্য পরিবেশের মানসম্মত উৎপাদন করা, পরিবেশকে উন্নত রাখার জন্য, পরিবেশের মান বজায় রাখার জন্য প্রযুক্তি ব্যবহার করে একটা পরিবেশ বান্ধব শিল্প গড়ে তোলার জন্য কিন্তু একটা চাপ আসছে। এবং আমরা যখন স্বল্পোন্নত দেশ থেকে উত্তরণ ঘটাবো তখন এই চাপটা আরও আসবে। এই ধরনের চাপ উন্নয়নশীল দেশের জন্য শুধুমাত্র আপনার শ্রম বিষয়ক না, ফ্যাক্টরির ভিতরে বিভিন্ন ধরনের যে সেফটি মেজার সেটাও না, পরিবেশগত চাপটাও আসবে। কিন্তু আমরা জানি যে এই পরিবেশগত মান বজায় রাখার জন্য যেই ধরনের প্রযুক্তি দরকার, যেই ধরনের বিনিয়োগ দরকার, যেই ধরনের দক্ষতা দরকার, সেটা এখনও আমরা শিখছি। এবং এই শেখার মধ্য দিয়ে কিন্তু এটা একটা, যেহেতু এমন একটা শিল্প যেখানে যৌথ উদ্যোগের প্রয়োজন পড়ে, সেজন্য আমরা বলছি যে সকলের একটা সম্মিলিত প্রচেষ্টা দরকার। বিশ্বব্যাপী এই যে COP26-এ যে সমস্ত দেশগুলো, সারা পৃথিবীর সব দেশই তারা প্রতিজ্ঞা করেছে যে এমিশন, কার্বন এমিশন, গ্রিন হাউস গ্যাস এমিশন এগুলো সম্পূর্ণভাবে তারা বিলুপ্ত করে 2050 সালের মধ্যে নেট জিরো অর্থাৎ জিরো এমিশন করবে, সেটা তারা অর্জন করবে। বাংলাদেশ স্বল্পোন্নত দেশ হলেও, বাংলাদেশের সম্পদ সীমিত হলেও বাংলাদেশেরও কমিটমেন্ট আছে, যেটাকে আমরা বলি NDC অর্থাৎ ন্যাশনালি ডিটারমিন্ড কন্ট্রিবিউশন, যে আমি কতখানি কমাবো, এমিশন কতখানি কমাবো। এটা আমরা স্ব-উদ্যোগে 4-5টা খাত থেকে কমাবো। আবার একটা পার্সেন্টেজ দেওয়া আছে নির্দিষ্ট, যদি আমরা সাহায্য পাই, কন্ডিশনাল যে কন্ডিশন, সেটা হচ্ছে যে যদি সাহায্য পাই তাহলে আমরা আরও বেশি কমাতে পারবো, সেই কমিটমেন্টটাও কিন্তু রয়েছে। সুতরাং আমাদের অভ্যন্তরীণ জাতীয়ভাবে এবং আন্তর্জাতিকভাবে যে আমাদের কমিটমেন্ট রক্ষা এবং আমাদের শিল্প, এবং শিল্পের কথা বলতে গেলে শুধুমাত্র যে এই শিল্প না, সব ক্ষেত্রেই, তবে যেহেতু এটা একটা রপ্তানি নির্ভর একটা শিল্প, সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের এটার উপরে আরও বেশি অনেকখানি নজর দেওয়ার প্রয়োজন, এবং সেই উদ্দেশ্যে আমরা এই গবেষণাটি করেছি। আমরা দেখতে পেরেছি যে আমরা এখানে 403টা ফ্যাক্টরিতে সার্ভে করেছি, বোথ টেক্সটাইল এবং তৈরি পোশাক শিল্প। আমাদের 4,500-এর উপরে কর্মীদের সাক্ষাৎকার নিয়েছি। এছাড়া বিভিন্ন এক্সপার্টদের সাথে অনেকবার কথা বলেছি, এবং সেটা এক্সপার্ট গ্রুপের মাধ্যমে এবং ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি কথা বলেছি, যে বোঝার জন্য কী ধরনের বিনিয়োগ হচ্ছে, কী ধরনের প্রস্তুতি তারা নিচ্ছেন, এবং আর কি দরকার, কি বাধাটা কী, এবং আমাদের কি করা দরকার, সেই অনুযায়ী তারা মতামত দিয়েছেন, এবং আমরা সার্ভে থেকেও পেয়েছি, সেটার আমরা বক্তব্যটা তুলে ধরলাম। এখানে আমরা দেখতে পেয়েছি যে অনেক কারখানায় বিভিন্ন ধরনের সার্টিফিকেট নিয়েছে, গ্রিন রিলেটেড অনেক সার্টিফিকেট আছে। আবার তার পাশাপাশি আমরা ইদানিং দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে লিড একটা সার্টিফিকেশন আছে, যেটা USGS অধীনে হয়ে থাকে লিড বিল্ডিংয়ের জন্য। সেটার মাঝখানে, সেটার মধ্যে অনেক ধরনের, সেখানে এনার্জি রিলেটেড মেজার আছে, ওয়াটার ওয়েস্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট, তারপরে কেমিক্যাল ওয়েস্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট, এগুলি সবই আছে। সেই সার্টিফিকেটও নিচ্ছে বাংলাদেশে, তো প্রায় 200টা অলরেডি নিয়েছে, এবং আরও বেশ কিছু 400-500 পাইপলাইনে রয়েছে। কিন্তু আবার দেখা গেছে আমরা যখন বায়ারদের সাথে, ব্র্যান্ডদের সাথে কথা বলেছি, তখন তারা কিন্তু বলেছে যে তাদের আবার রিকোয়ারমেন্ট আলাদা, তাদের যে গ্রিনের ডেফিনেশন, ইন্ডিকেটর, সেগুলি কিন্তু ভিন্ন এই সার্টিফিকেটে। তো সেখানে এক ধরনের কনফিউশনও দেখা দিয়েছে যে আসলে এই রিকোয়ারমেন্টগুলো যদি একটা ইউনিফাইড এবং হারমোনাইজড হয়, তাহলে কিন্তু সুবিধা হয় যে আমাদের যারা রপ্তানিকারক আছেন তারা বুঝতে, কারণ এক একটি বায়ারের রিকোয়ারমেন্ট এক এক রকম, লিডকে অনেকেই কিন্তু স্বীকার করতে আবার চায় না। সুতরাং সামনে তার মানে হচ্ছে যে আরও প্রস্তুতি নিতে হবে। সুতরাং এই সামগ্রিক প্রেক্ষাপটটা বিবেচনা করে আমরা এই কর্মকাণ্ডটি হাতে নিয়েছিলাম, গবেষণাটি, এবং এটার উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে যে ভবিষ্যতে কী ধরনের সহযোগিতা দরকার। এবং এই সহযোগিতার ক্ষেত্রে আপনারা দেখেছেন যে উপস্থাপনার সময় যে এখানে শুধুমাত্র সরকার না, শুধুমাত্র উদ্যোক্তারা না, এখানে আন্তর্জাতিক যারা উন্নয়ন সহযোগী রয়েছেন এবং ব্র্যান্ড বায়ার, তাদের সকলের, এবং ওয়ার্কার যারা এখানে কাজ করছেন তাদেরও কি উপকার হতে পারে, তাদের কিভাবে সহযোগিতা করা যায়, তাদের জীবনের মান কিভাবে উন্নত হয় এই গ্রিনিংয়ের মাধ্যমে, সেটাও আমরা দেখার চেষ্টা করেছি। এবং শুরুতে আপনারা দেখেছেন যে আমরা গ্রিনিংটাকে একটা হোলিস্টিক ওয়েতে দেখেছি, ইকোনমিক, সোশ্যাল, এনভায়রনমেন্টাল, অর্থনৈতিক উন্নতি হবে এবং পরিবেশ রক্ষা হবে, এবং তার পাশাপাশি সামাজিক উন্নয়ন হবে। এই তিনটার যদি একসাথে না হয়, তাহলে সেই গ্রিনিংটা আবার সাস্টেনেবল অর্থাৎ টেকসই হবে না। সেই অ্যাপ্রোচ থেকেই আমরা এই গবেষণার কর্মকাণ্ডটি পরিচালনা করেছি। তো এইটুকু বলে আমি এখন আমাদের যে নির্ধারিত আলোচক রয়েছেন তাদের কাছে যাব। এখানে আমাদের উদ্যোক্তা রয়েছেন, কিন্তু আমরা যারা এই ওয়ার্কার্সদের প্রতিনিধি, তাদের একজনকেও দাওয়াত দিয়েছিলাম এখানে বিশেষ বক্তা হওয়ার জন্য, কিন্তু দুঃখজনকভাবে তিনি আসতে পারেননি, তিনি বিদেশে ছিলেন। আমাদেরকে জানিয়েছেন যে তিনি এসেছেন, কিন্তু তিনি তার সমস্যা হচ্ছে, তিনি হয়তো শরীর ভালো না তার, আমাদেরকে আজকে সকালেই জানিয়েছেন। যদি আমরা আগে জানতে পারতাম অন্য কাউকে হয়তো আনতে পারতাম, কিন্তু আমাদের সামনে অনেকেই আছেন ওয়ার্কারদের প্রতিনিধি, তাদের বক্তব্য পরে শুনবো। So I would like to now go back to our distinguished speakers. So first I would like to request Mr. Teis Ustra, who is the Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Bangladesh. So over to you, about 7 minutes. If you can, yeah, try, but...
How many minutes do you say? Sorry.
7 minutes, if you can complete, but if it
Honorable State Minister, do you hear me? So, Honorable State Minister, honorable colleagues from Sweden and the EU, distinguished speakers, and distinguished scientists who have presented this study here. Assalamu alaikum, Shubo Shokal, and welcome to you all. I'm very glad to be here, a distinguished speaker, although I more feel like being Lionel Messi after a football match of the Argentinian national team with all the press around. So I have the impression of how he feels and how he can sustain all the pressure. So before going into the reflections on the study, I would like to go, where did we come from in Bangladesh? Bangladesh has maintained an impressive economic growth. 7-8% in the last 10 years. A long way of combating poverty and being resilient. Extreme poverty is 5.6% in 22 compared to 34% in 2000. And it goes without saying that the RMG sector had a role in this growth journey, both in terms of creating jobs as well as in export earnings, which is why Bangladesh is aiming to graduate from LDC status. And I guess Mr. Famidi Khatoon also referred to that when she spoke in Bangla. And also from the lens of economic and environmental sustainability, Bangladesh growth can be regarded resilient and sustainable. And considering the geographically location, Bangladesh is highly vulnerable for climate issues. Related to the garment industry, there are 195 green factories. That's remarkable results after the Rana Plaza incident and the exit of the Bangladesh Accord, which has been started by our minister 10 years ago, based in Amsterdam, and now being handed over to the government itself, and the Bangladeshi government is really taking it up as a challenge to provide better labor circumstances in the Bangladeshi garment industry. So what is next for Bangladesh in the coming 10 years? Climate risk. A study from Cornell University said that Bangladesh is one of the most vulnerable countries for climate risk. And without going into details, the study findings shows that extreme heat and frequent flooding could erase 65 billion in apparel export earnings from the 4 countries in Southeast Asia, of which Bangladesh is the largest. And it's also risk of foregoing 1 million jobs due to slower growth. So there's still time to act, and the RMG sector should play its part as well. It has to act from securing to a green transition to green factories. Focus on modernizing trade agreements towards greener agreements that helps RMG to remain competitive up beyond 2026. LDC graduation with green transition. This is rather an opportunity than a challenge, because this means Bangladesh steps up and open new avenues for economic opportunities. Bangladesh needs to rethink its growth model, how to have equitable and green growth. Balanced approach to secure green transition in RMG, as well as ensuring decent workplaces. As quoted in a recent report by the UN Special Rapporteur on Bangladesh, he has said that Bangladesh should move away from the low-wage trap when they graduate and explore other comparative advantages to trade. Bank on building a better workforce, such as green jobs. And of course, how long will the minimum wage of 8,000 taka remain valid for a productive workforce? At this moment, it's a very actual question. The future of jobs for the 4.5 million workers. There is no alternative for improving working conditions, wages, and protecting workers' rights. Everyone, including brands and buyers, have to support for better worker rights and wages to sustain the industry itself. And what the study says, it also says it also shows that sustainable production needs to pay and can be paid. If I calculate the figures right, around 65% of all the respondents have said they are doing sustainability investments because of brands, buyers, clients, and marketing issues. And we have to make the sustainable model work. And therefore, I would like to thank the scientists that they have made up the comprehensive set of measures, really saying, if you want to make a sustainable garment industry, and actually would like to extend it, it's also not the garment industry, it's all industries. It's leather, it's chemicals, it's pharmaceutical. All factories should be sustainable and can be sustainable if you have the right policy framework, but also if you have the right implementation of the policy framework. And seeing the recommendations, I guess there's a very good set of recommendations, and it can work. Actually, if I see these recommendations, we have the same discussion in Europe. At this very moment, a Dutch candidate commissioner for a European Commissioner on Environment is being questioned by Parliament on the same issues on greening and how can Europe be carbon neutral. And there the basic issue is it has to be paid and it has to be profitable. So it is a joint effort of the regulatory framework, factories, and also buyers and consumers that need to work together to get this industry more sustainable and the whole industry more sustainable. And without further ado, I do think that especially when you see the Bangladeshi industry in the garment, the Tier 1 is already at 96%, if I'm correct. It's the trickling down to Tier 3 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. And I guess there the regulatory framework, tax incentives, as well as better communications and setting examples will really be needed to also to have those parts of the sector up to the international standards and which can get Bangladesh into the second phase of their development. And without further ado, I wish you a very pleasant panel discussion.
Thank you very much for those kind words and very important insights from Mr. Tees Utstra. And you are well within your time. Thank you for that as well. So I would like to turn to now Mr. Mohammad Shahidullah Azim, who is the Vice President of BGMA, Bangladesh Garments Manufacturers and Exporters Association. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Today's chief guest, Honorable State Minister for Planning, Dr. Shamsul Alam, distinguished speakers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends from media, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. It's really an honor for me to be here today. I must extend my thanks to CPD for touching such kind of important issue today. I believe that study conducted by CPD Research will play a pivotal role in accelerating these transformations. Today's topic, securing green transition of the textile and ready-made garment sector in Bangladesh. I have two observations from it. First of all, the RMG industry has already made unparalleled advancement in the green transition, and we are considered as a global model of green manufacturing hub. We want to continue this momentum toward excellence. Secondly, I think CPD should also focus on other hazardous industries which pollute environment. The RMG industry is already under intense surveillance, but to make it more comprehensive for the wider economy, I think the approach should be securing green economy and get the broader stakeholders on board. Highest number of green buildings in Bangladesh right now, 202 LEED certified green factories by USGBC right now, of which 73 are platinum rating, 115 gold, 10 silver, 13 out of globally top 15 lead green factories are in Bangladesh. I repeat, 13 out of top 15 globally lead green factories are in Bangladesh. More 500 factories are in the process of obtaining lead certifications. BGME Strategic Vision 2030, as the apex association of the garment industry in Bangladesh, BGM has taken a series of initiatives under Sustainability Vision 2030, which aims to reduce 30% GHG emission, 50% of use the sustainable raw materials, 50% reduction of groundwater usage, 100% use of JDHC, zero discharge of hazardous chemical, 30% reduction of energy usage, 20% usage of renewable energy, and 30% reduction of deforestation. These targets have been fixed in accordance with Race to Zero GHG emission, SDGs, and national priority indicators of the government of Bangladesh. Since 2012, we are a partner of Cleaner Textile with IFC, which made a significant positive impact in the industry in terms of saving water, energy, chemical, and made our process cleaner. We are now working with several development partners like GIZ to decarbonize our manufacturing. BGMA joined the United Nations Fashion Charter for Climate Action and pledged to reduce GHG emission by 30% by till 2030. Individual factories are taking unique initiatives. Some of our factories installed mega solar plant, daylight simulations, rainwater harvesting technologies, indoor air quality, thermal control, building management system for energy and so on. We are collaborating with H&M Group to prepare a roadmap for climate neutral garment industry in Bangladesh. BGMA plays to German Green Button Initiative, which is a global seal of excellence in sustainability. For its outstanding contribution to promote Green Factory, BGME awarded with 2021 USGBC Leadership Award. We are perhaps the only trade association in the country that has published sustainability report. And now we are developing a digital data platform so that we can periodically track sustainability within the industry and publish it regularly. We are now embracing the circularity, which is not only beneficial for the environment, but also for the long-term sustainability and competitiveness in the industry. So we have taken all approach to make the industry green and carbon neutral, while the factories are giving significant efforts to it, because this initiative comes at a higher cost. I think the research should focus on how we can ensure a reasonable price structure for green transition in the sector. We expect that CPD will take more initiative which will address the challenges. I thank to our government for extending support, particularly for fixing lower corporate tax for green factories, that is 10%. Government has also established Green Transformation Fund and Technology Development Fund. We need to make the scheme similar and easily for the SMEs. SMEs face the most difficulties to secure finance to become green, and due diligence requirement in the existing fund scheme is often difficult for them to comply. Bilateral and multilateral donor groups should also come forward to support the green transition with finance. We would urge you to focus more on these issues in your research. The journey toward green transition in the textile and RMG sector is not an option, but a necessity. The journey requires unwavering commitment and cooperations. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shahidullah Azim, for your words and for also highlighting the initiatives taken by the garment sector in Bangladesh. and what is needed going forward. So I would open the floor for just 5 minutes because one of our guests of honor, EU Ambassador, His Excellency Charles Whitley, will have to go. But I will take the opportunity, for, in his presence, so that you can have any questions or comments which he might address, he might need to address, or any comments, just, yes, I see your hand. Yeah. Please bring.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning. My name is Tabit Awal. I just want to start off by thanking CPD and of course the Embassy of Sweden for hosting such an event and allowing me this time to speak. Not to take anything away, I just want to add to what the presentation was today. See, the issue is that no matter how green our process is, if the end product is not green, then we have a big problem in the future. And by end product, what I'm trying to refer to as that, especially in Europe, under the Green Deal 2020, that by 2030, all fashion companies will be obligated to have a portion of recyclable textiles or recyclable RMG materials in their product cycle. In Bangladesh, if we don't have sources for the waste, whether it be PET plastic or the actual cotton RMG, then we'll be in trouble in trying to make the product itself. So that is something I would like to suggest to CPD to look into in the future dialogues that we have. A topic of thought is that within the European Union, 5.8 trillion textile waste is being discarded a year. If we can get access to the 5.8 trillion discarded textile waste to Bangladesh, then we actually have a source of creating recyclable or reusable textiles materials. Now the problem comes in that governments these days don't want to talk about waste. Governments don't have a waste exchange policy. Governments don't want to talk about trading waste with each other. So over time, what we've seen is that landfills are getting filled up, and and wastage is just getting built up. Although we're talking about recycling and reusing materials. So I just wanted to make a quick thought about this one. And from my side, I represent right now the only PET recycling factory in Bangladesh, where we make resin good enough for carbonated soft drinks as well as for textile threads. And I thank Our Excellency, Mr. Charles Whiteley, for visiting our factory during his time here. Thank you again.
Thank you, David. I can see another hand. Yes, quickly. At the back. Pichone.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm Dr. Ismail, National Consultant with the UNDP and also Professor of Dhaka University. My question is basically in the presentation, I saw that only very least focus given on the chemical waste. So that's the main things that the chemical waste suffering the worker as well as the industry. And as the Tabitawal said about we give the focus on the ETP plants in the previous years. So why not we are giving the more focus for the reducing the waste chemical as well as the transforming to the green chemicals for the alternative productions. So that's the one of the things that we are changing. And UNDP also trying to set up a programs for the minimization of the waste. I hope that we will get the CPD for the program. Thank you.
Thank you. This side, yes.
Good noon. My name is Tazwar Mahmood. I work as a reporter at Shomai Television. So my question is to the Ambassador Charles Whiteley, that recently European Union Parliament has discussed about the coercion on our human rights worker, and they have actually raised their concerns. And on that session, they also discussed about the legibility of Bangladesh exercising the EBA opportunity in the European market. So my question is that relating these two things, like the law part and the business part, is it a bit contradictory or not? And my second question is that since you have raised this question about from the business perspective, and since we are also actually going to hold our national elections on the late of December or early January, so if that election is not free and fair as per EU's desires or the Western world's desire, would you actually review the EBA facility or GSP facilities? As per I know that there is actually the EU is also going to review it by December 31 this year. Thank you.
Take another question, then I'll come back to this.
Yeah, so hi, good afternoon, I'm Anika here. So just to add on, since we have, Mr. Thabit has already spoken about recycling textile waste. A point to address is because we know there's a jute market existing in Bangladesh textile, and that has been a pain point for both the government side, the industry itself. The jute itself is a huge industry. The players in it within the jute community, and also for textile companies. So how can policies, when we are speaking about having stringent policies, how can we have a policy or strategies at place where the whole ecosystem is formalized such that, it works? So that's something that I would like to address. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll come back to the audience once again, but as I have mentioned that His Excellency Charles Whiteley has to go, and so I would request him to make his remarks and also answer to the question, which is a very important question. I think, that's a curiosity from many Bangladeshis at this point in time. So over to you, Excellency.
Thank you, Dr. Famida, and thank you. I must apologise to the Honourable Minister and colleagues that I have to leave. I have to go to the Foreign Ministry, so I'm sorry for jumping the queue. But I will answer the question first because I'd like to get it out of the way. It's not on topic, first of all. So, but dear friends in the media, of course you're interested in these issues. I just want to say thank you for that. I really enjoyed going to your factory and seeing how you're leading the way, leading the charge, also in compliance with European rules on recycling of plastic. So that was really good. My first point is on the point you raised is the European Parliament speaks for the European Parliament, and without having to have a PhD in EU constitutional law, that's what that resolution represents. It's a view from the Parliament, and the Parliament is an important actor, of course, on trade law and our incentive schemes and our GSP+. My emphasis is on the GSP+ scheme as an incentive. It's not a stick, it's a carrot. I think Bangladesh is very well aware of the requirements to join GSP+, and I think you're well aware because I've said many times in public what they are, and the bottom line is meeting the requirements of 32 international conventions, which, as we all know, Bangladesh has now ratified, and they cover a huge range of issues: environmental, social, human rights, labour rights. And every country, it's a work in progress, and nobody expects perfection on day one of GSP+. So that work in progress, it's important to align that work in progress with our collaboration as an international partner of Bangladesh. And here I segue into some of the remarks I wanted to make. First of all, to congratulate CPD and the Embassy of Sweden on this excellent study. I must say, especially the recommendations provide a lot of food for thought, all of which is, of course, relevant, as I'm sure you said, Dr. Famida, in your remarks, relevant to GSP+ and the progress towards that. I think what I like about this study is that it encompasses not just big factories, which we're used to dealing with and engaging with, but also smaller and micro factories. And I guess some of the initial conclusions of the report aren't shock horror. I mean, it's perhaps no surprise that big factories are better at meeting some of the compliance requirements. But that then leads to the next question, which I think your report very well answers, which is how do we support others to reach those standards? Because GSP+ is about a country graduating, not about a sector or a factory. It's about the whole thrust of the country, the policy direction. And I think we all have a role to play in that. Of course, the Bangladesh government has a massive role to play in getting the regulation right, getting support to industry right, also not deterring technical assistance from abroad, which is quite critical to many of these issues. And we're certainly pushing on that door to try to ensure that even more technical assistance and engagement can happen from European countries. And I hesitate again to mention the European Chamber of Commerce, but it's almost tattooed on my forehead now, but it is on the way. It will help, and it will help not only EU business, but also Bangladesh business. I think I visited a factory a couple of days ago, Deco, a very good factory, with our visiting director, Petros Ustubs, and I want to just recall why he was here. He was here to finalize our work towards a €400 million support on renewable energy to Bangladesh. and that's in the form of grants and loans, including a loan from the European Investment Bank. I think we as Europe want to be an actor in this field because it's a strategic issue for us. It's a strategic issue for Bangladesh as well, as we all try to work towards net zero. And I think you know that EU is by law committed to climate neutrality by 2050. And it will take a lot of effort domestically amongst our 27 member states to get there. And it's even more challenging for countries like Bangladesh, who have every right to build their industry and develop as they wish. But great to see that that can happen in the most green way possible. And I think we want to be a good partner on that. I also want to mention, and I think it's important, the issue of the green premium, because it's true that from Europe we have many more regulations coming down the line. We have the Circular Economy Action Plan, we have the textiles regulations, recycling, we have the due diligence legislation, which is now in a sort of tripartite negotiation amongst the Parliament, Council and Commission in our system, and lots of other mini legislation that could ultimately have implications for Bangladesh's industry and how you do business. But the question of the premium, the green premium, is a very important one, and I think it was great to see in the report, and again, thank you to Mr. Kamal for presenting it so well. It was great to see in the report there are some sort of mini premiums in terms of workers' health, where compliance is happening, and in terms of the overall approach of the factory. But I do think it's hard to avoid the issue of wages. It's hard to avoid the issue of wages and fair wages, and the brand's role in ensuring fair wages, because as been mentioned by other speakers, we're now at a very pivotal moment for wages. 5 years since the last wage revision in the garment sector. 8,000 taka by any stretch of the imagination isn't a very healthy wage to live on, particularly if you have kids to feed. And I hope that we see something, something quite radical, frankly, to come out of the wage revision that will reflect economic realities and the struggles of ordinary families here and struggling as we are in the rest of the world. So the onus is not only on the government, the onus is not only just on the industry, it's also on brands and buyers. And there are excellent examples of real engagement and partnership amongst brands. And as we're in the good company of the Embassy of Sweden, I would cite the partnership between BGMEA and H&M Group that's reducing greenhouse gas emissions across the value chain, decreasing the carbon footprint in the supply chain, and helping BGMA facilitate the 30% reduction in greenhouse gases that you mentioned by 2030. But that needs to be industry-wide, this kind of open partnership that means you can plan for the future and pay decent wages is important. And it also means that consumers in Europe have to wake up to the fact, at a difficult time, they need to pay more, because we don't expect the money to magically appear out of the ether. It has to be something that keeps Bangladesh's industry competitive, gets a fair price in Europe, pays the workers well, and moves towards compliance. And it's a tricky mix, and no one's saying it's easy. We want to be as helpful as possible, both with financial funding and our GSP terms. But I think every part of that picture has to get its approach right and ensure that Bangladesh remains competitive, also diversifies its exports, and carries on the success story after graduation. So I could speak at length about the various bits of legislation approaching, but maybe you'd rather Google that than have me elaborate on all of them. But thank you for allowing me to intervene a little bit earlier than expected. Dr. Farmina.
Thank you very much, Excellency Charles Whiteley, for those points, and also trying to answer to the question of one of our media friends. Very important points, and you also touched upon some of the issues which, though you have not really addressed many of the technical issues, I think you have clarified that why you are not touching up on those, because that's a different area which is dealt by a different group probably. So legislators you meant. But thank you very much for those encouraging words also. Now I think I would go back to the floor, and please make your comments or questions by identifying yourself. So we'll maybe have another 10 minutes or so. Yes. Okay, yes.
Thank you. I really want to congratulate CPD I'm Shamin Zaman, the CEO of the CSR Center, Corporate Social Responsibility Center. I think it's a very opportune moment that we talk about green transition. And as our colleague from BGMA just mentioned, that Bangladesh is already in the global map. But how can we enhance this intervention? We need to escalate it. It cannot be only the large factories, and I've seen in the research that we've looked at small and medium micro enterprises as well. I think the business associations can actually engage in their supply chains, and if they want to be global leaders, and Bangladesh wants to be in that map, which we are already, but become number one, we need to work with our supply chains. So doing environmental as well as economic and social compliance implies, and even governance, we should not forget ESG, because the G is very important for governance. So I think that what we can do through our business associations, tackle our supply chains, because they don't have that forum to gain knowledge or to get that training or the know-how. So I would also request CPD, if there's a way that CPD as well as the Swedish Embassy can work on this, to work with the supply chains, because the critical mass of Bangladesh's economy depends on them. And we've seen them during the pandemic, the disruption in the supply chains. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is Mr. Charles Whiteley. For green product, you know the pricing is the important thing. So can we put this product is from green factory, then we can get extra premium price? Because it's the policies like this. If it is the factory product is from green factory, there should be tag. With this tag, then price will be upper price. That means customer will, they know that this is coming from a green factory, which we are saving our. So that is the one. And another question is, Honorable Minister, due to dollar crisis, the Latin America pricing and Bangladesh pricing is now very big difference, because they are telling now that due to the dollar devaluation, our buying price and taxes price almost same. So we are not interested to buy from Bangladesh. So we can, any support or planning like this, that for incentive price is higher than before.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep that, but I think Ambassador, would you like to respond? Please.
I think you're absolutely right, sir, about making clear for consumers exactly how the garment is produced. I think that's happening, and in the EU, I just see we're proposing a new labelling rules in this respect that will help transparency, so that consumers can make an informed choice and know to what degree their product is compliant. And I believe the industry here is well aware of that legislation that's on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep the other question for the minister when he speaks, so he will address that. এখানে যারা ওয়ার্কারের পক্ষ থেকে এসেছেন, ওয়ার্কার্স অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের যদি কেউ বক্তব্য রাখতে চান, because as I have mentioned, we had a speaker at the head table, but she has not been able to join this morning. So we also want to listen to your perspective on greening and also the overall sustainability of the sector. But কেউ যদি বলতে, হ্যাঁ বলেন।
ধন্যবাদ সিপিডিকে আমাকে এখানে আমন্ত্রণ জানানোর জন্য। আসলে জাস্ট ট্রানজিশন,
আপনার নামটা একটু বলেন।
আমার নাম হচ্ছে তাহমিনা রহমান, সাধারণ সম্পাদক, বাংলাদেশ পোশাক শিল্প শ্রমিক ফেডারেশন। জাস্ট ট্রানজিশন এটা হচ্ছে শ্রমিকের জন্য একটা নতুন বিষয়। শ্রমিকরা আসলে তো এটার উপরে অবগত না। জাস্ট ট্রানজিশন শুধুই উত্তরণ। এটা আসলে জলবায়ুর যে পরিবর্তন, ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ, এটা শুধু শ্রমিক শ্রেণী ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হবে না বা হচ্ছে না, এটার মধ্যে কিন্তু আমি ব্যক্তিগতভাবে একজন সাধারণ জনগণ, আমিও কিন্তু এটার মধ্যে অ্যাফেক্টেড হচ্ছি। তো এটাকে আসলে সরকারিভাবেও এটা দেখতে হবে। সরকারের একটা বড় দায়িত্ব, মালিক তার শ্রমিকের দিক দিয়ে দেখবে, কিন্তু সরকার পুরো জনগণের দায়িত্ব তার উপর। এই জলবায়ুর পরিবর্তে কোথায় কোথায় শ্রমিকরা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হবে এটা কিন্তু একটা বিরাট বিষয়, কারণ শ্রমিকরা কিন্তু এতে করে চাকরি হারাবে। এখানে দেখা যাবে যারা স্থায়ী শ্রমিক সবচেয়ে বেশি তারা লুজার হবে। এখানে চলে আসবে চুক্তিভিত্তিক শ্রমিক, কন্ট্রাক্ট বেসিক, কারণ চুক্তিভিত্তিক হলে শ্রমিকের কিন্তু আসলে সেখানে তাদের সার্ভিস বেনিফিট বলেন অন্য অন্য যে অধিকারগুলো আছে সেগুলো কিন্তু দেয়া লাগে না। চুক্তিভিত্তিক যেখান থেকে যখন খুশি তারা নিতে পারে মালিকরা। তো আমার মনে হয় আসলে শ্রমিকদেরকে আগে সচেতন করতে হবে, এবং আমরা যারা আছি আম জনতা যেটা আমরা বলবো, এই জাস্ট ট্রানজিশন এটার উপরে বিশদ আলাপ আলোচনার দরকার আছে, গবেষণার প্রয়োজন আছে, এটা একটা পলিসির দরকার আছে। আসলে এটা আমাদের বাংলাদেশে আমরা কিন্তু কেউ কিছু মনে করবেন, আমি না বললেই নয়, আমরা গ্রিন হাউজের দোষ দিচ্ছি, কারণ আমেরিকার গ্রিন হাউস গ্যাস নিঃসরণ হচ্ছে, ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হচ্ছে, আমরা ক্ষতিপূরণ চাচ্ছি। কিন্তু আমার দেশের সরকারকে ভাবতে হবে আমার দেশেও কিন্তু আমরাও ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হচ্ছি, আমার দেশের থেকেই আমরা যারা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হচ্ছি আমাদেরকে ক্ষতিপূরণটা কে দিবে? শ্রমিকরা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হচ্ছে, শ্রমিকদের ক্ষতিপূরণ মালিক দিবে, সরকারও দিতে বাধ্য। আমরা অন্য দেশকে আগে আঙুল
বলবেন যে কিভাবে একটু জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের কারণে শ্রমিকরা একটা উদাহরণ দিলে।
আমি বলতে চাই জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের জন্য যে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে বরফ গলবে, আমাদের দেশ কিন্তু নিচু এলাকাগুলো প্লাবিত হবে, সবচেয়ে বেশি ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হবে। সেখানকার কিন্তু যারা আছে তারা কিন্তু অল্টারনেটিভ চলে আসবে, তাদের কাজ হারাবে, কৃষিকাজ থেকে তারা সরে আসবে, কারণ কৃষিকাজে তার ব্যাহত হবে পানির জন্য, নিচু জমিগুলো যেগুলো আছে সেগুলো প্লাবিত হয়ে যাবে। তা এই জন্যই শ্রমিকগুলো বেশি ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হবে। আমি শুধু গার্মেন্টস সেক্টর নিয়ে কাজ করি, শুধু গার্মেন্টস সেক্টরের কথা তো বললে হবে না, এখানে অনেক সেক্টরের শ্রমিকরা আছে যারা ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হবে। সকালের কথাই আমাদেরকে চিন্তা করতে হবে। আমি যখন কথা বলবো আমাকে সব শ্রেণীর শ্রমিকদের নিয়ে কথা বলতে হবে। তবে আমি মালিকদেরকে বলবো গ্রিন ট্রানজিশন অফ যেটা বলছেন আপনারা, গ্রিন ফ্যাক্টরির কথা, হ্যাঁ ভালো ভালো ফ্যাক্টরি আছে, গ্রিন ফ্যাক্টরি যেখানে বড় ফ্যাক্টরির কথা বলা আছে, সেখানে হয়তো দেখা যাবে শ্রমিকের সম্পূর্ণ 100% হবে না, কিছু হয়তো তাদের অধিকার সংরক্ষিত হবে, কিন্তু যে ছোট ফ্যাক্টরিগুলো আছে, মধ্যম ফ্যাক্টরিগুলো আছে, এই শ্রমিকদের অবস্থাটা কি হবে? কারণ বড় ফ্যাক্টরি দেখা যাচ্ছে, আমরা দেখি যে বড় ফ্যাক্টরির অনেক কাজগুলো কিন্তু এই ছোটো ফ্যাক্টরিগুলো সাব কন্ট্রাক্টে করে। ওই বড় ফ্যাক্টরি শ্রমিকরা যে বেনিফিশিয়ারি হচ্ছে, এই সাব কন্ট্রাক্টের শ্রমিকরা কিন্তু সেই বেনিফিশিয়ারি হচ্ছে না, তারা সেই অধিকারগুলো পাচ্ছে না, তো বঞ্চিত তো কিন্তু এই শ্রমিকরা হচ্ছে। তাই বলবো মালিকদেরকে চিন্তা করতে হবে, এবং ব্র্যান্ড বায়ার যারা আছে তাদেরকেও এগিয়ে আসতে হবে, কারণ তাদের কাছটাই বড় বড় বায়ারদের কাজগুলোই কিন্তু বড় ফ্যাক্টরিগুলো তাদের ওই সাব কন্ট্রাক্টের ফ্যাক্টরিদেরকে দিচ্ছে। সেখানে বায়ারদেরকে দেখতে হবে, মনিটরিং করতে হবে শ্রমিকগুলো তার ন্যায্য অধিকারগুলো পাচ্ছে কি না, তা না হলে এই শ্রমিক শ্রেণী কিন্তু হারিয়ে যাবে। কারণ অল্টারনেটিভভাবে আমরা দেখছি অনেক ফ্যাক্টরিতে আগে যেরকম আমরা বলতাম যে গার্মেন্টস সেক্টরে নারী শ্রমিক সবচেয়ে বেশি, কিন্তু এখন এখানে দেখছি নারী শ্রমিক সবচেয়ে কম। আস্তে আস্তে কিন্তু নারী শ্রমিকরা কিন্তু তার কাজের থেকে ব্যাক স্টেজে সে চলে যাচ্ছে। এটাও আমাদের চিন্তার বিষয়। আমরা নারী শক্তি বলি, নারীকে এগিয়ে নেওয়ার কথা বলি, কিন্তু আসলে এটা মালিক শ্রেণী যারা আছেন তাদের চিন্তা ভাবনাটা কি? এখানে একজন অবশ্যই মালিক আছেন, তার থেকে আমি শুনতে চাচ্ছি আপনাদের চিন্তা ভাবনা, এই শ্রমিকগুলোকে কীভাবে ফিরিয়ে আনা যায়। শ্রমিকের ন্যায্য অধিকার, মজুরির প্রসঙ্গটা অল্টারনেটিভভাবে চলে আসছে, কারণ শ্রমিক
কেন চলে যাচ্ছে এটা কি আপনার কোনো ধারণা আছে?
একদিকে নারীরা চলে যাচ্ছে কারণ নারীরা তাদের যে অধিকারগুলো সংরক্ষিত হওয়ার কথা, একটা নারী বিবাহের পর সে মা হতে যাচ্ছেন বা মা হয়ে গেছেন, সে বাচ্চাটাকে কোথায় রেখে আসবে? আমরা শুধু বলার জন্যই বলি যে তার ওখানে ডে কেয়ার সেন্টার আছে, আসলে এগুলো কিন্তু সব আইওয়াশ। আমি বলবো না যে সব ফ্যাক্টরি, খুব কম ফ্যাক্টরিগুলোই কিন্তু আছে, খুব হাতে গোনা খুব কম ফ্যাক্টরি তাদের ডে কেয়ার সেন্টার আছে। আপনারা আসলে মনিটরিংয়ের ওই জায়গাটা আমাদেরকে যেতে হবে। যারা কাজ দিচ্ছেন, এই যে আমরা বলি নারীদেরকে, আমরা বলি 8টা পরে কাজ করানো উচিত না, কিন্তু 10টা পর্যন্ত তারা কিন্তু সরকার থেকে সে পারমিশন নিয়েছেন। এই জায়গাটা আমাদেরকে পৌঁছতে হবে। আমরা সব সময় দেখি বিদেশি যারা আছেন তাদের চাপে কিন্তু মালিকরা অনেক সময় অনেক কিছু দিতে বাধ্য হন, কিন্তু আমার দেশের প্রেক্ষাপটে আমরা শ্রমিক নেতারাও কিন্তু অসহায় হয়ে পড়ি, কারণ আমাদের অনেক জায়গায় কিন্তু বাধ্যকতা থাকে, অনেক জায়গায় আমাদের হাত পা বাঁধা থাকে, আমরা অনেক জায়গায় ভয়েস রেস করতে পারি না। তাই বলবো নারী শ্রমিকটা কিন্তু এভাবেই হারিয়ে যাচ্ছে, নারী শ্রমিকের যে অধিকারগুলো আছে সেগুলো কিন্তু আসলেই সংরক্ষিত হচ্ছে না। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you very much. আপনাকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ. I'll just translate what she has made. Very important points actually. So what she has meant to say that just transition is a new issue for workers, and there should be awareness, and workers are being affected due to the climate change, and she also highlighted that it's not only about the workers within the RMG and textile sector, but all workers are being affected, and government needs to address these issues so that they can survive in a challenging climate circumstances. She mentioned about the employment, contractual employment, which sometimes does not comprise of many facilities, so just transition has to look at that also. And she has mentioned about greening the factories, that she rightly pointed out. We also have mentioned in our presentation that the larger factories are being able to green the factories, but the smaller ones are not, and many small ones are also subcontracting. But there, what is the situation of the workers' conditions there? We have to look at that, and for that owners, brands and buyers will have to look at their conditions so that their condition can be improved. And she highlighted very important issue that women workers, we know that the number is declining. Now it has come below 60%, which used to be 80%. Why they are leaving the sector? Some of these rights, leave and facilities during pregnancy or daycare center, though many factories are providing, but there is a lot to do also. And also regarding the timing, long hours is an issue. So she mentioned about that sometimes when there is pressure from the buyers, then brands and buyers, then the owners listen to that, but it has to come from within. So these are the important issues. Thank you very much for those. I'm sure, and she has also raised asked questions for Azim Bhai. You can come in at some point. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Ambassador, thank you for coming over, joining. So Azim Bhai, you can come in later. So thank you very much for this. Arekta? হ্যাঁ একটু বলেন।
ধন্যবাদ। আরেকটা জিনিস দেখেন, এই যে অটোমেশন চলে আসছে, চতুর্থ শিল্প বিপ্লব, এখানে কিন্তু সবচেয়ে বেশি শ্রমিক চাকরি হারাবে। কিন্তু এটার জন্য আমি আজিমাইকেও বলছি যে আপনাদের কি চিন্তা, এই শ্রমিকরা কি চাকরি ছেড়ে যে চলে যাবে, তাদেরকে স্কিল করার কি প্রয়োজন নেই? সেই জায়গাটায় কিন্তু তাদের যদি নিয়ে আসেন তাহলে এই শ্রমিককে ধরে রাখবেন, শিল্প অনেক গড়ে উঠবে। কিন্তু আমার শ্রমিক যদি স্কিল না হয় এ ব্যাপারে, তাহলে কিন্তু শিল্প গড়ে উঠলে কোনো কাজে আসবে না। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you very much. That's also another important point, that due to automation, many workers might lose their employment. But on the other hand, the entrepreneurs also need workers, so they have to skill and upskill these workers. So these are your issues, but I would like to also invite others who want to make comments.
আমি একটু বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম এই দিক থেকে, আপনার ডান দিকে। আমি মোস্তফা মাহবুব, সিনিয়র রিপোর্টার, ডিবিসিতে কাজ করি। আজিম ভাইয়ের কাছে একটু জানতে চাচ্ছিলাম যে আসলে ন্যূনতম মজুরি নিয়ে কথা উঠলো, এই বিষয়ে আসলে উদ্যোক্তারা কি ভাবছেন? কারণ আমি জানি যে ন্যূনতম মজুরি বোর্ডও গঠন হয়েছে, তাদের কয়েক দফা সভাও হয়েছে। আপনাদের কি বক্তব্য?
Thank you very much. And yes, my name is Poppy and I'm from Karmajibi Nari. I just like to mention that from the presentation, we see that the motivation for green certification part, we see the government environmental regulation has the least motivation for yes. But I just want to ask the Honorable State Minister that what will be the initiative from the government to increase these governmental regulation, environmental regulations so that the factories can motivate to get the green certificate, because it's very important, because most of time we see that the buyers requirement is important for the factories. But what will be the step of government? Thank you very much.
Ma'am, excuse me. At your right, yes. My name is Himadri. I work for Marks and Spencer as a sustainability manager for Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka. Thank you, CBD, for this comprehensive study and research, and so many information. This is really, really overwhelming for us. But few of the areas we need to focus more at this moment with urgent basis. If I say what would be the top priority at this moment, data quality and data accuracy. We have heard several times about that what is green. You know that at the Europe market, now if you sometimes say green product, the competition market authority will claim you for greenwashing. We can't use the word green actually, right? So we have to understand first, what is green? Now we heard so many times about that standardization of the expectation. It is difficult. In Europe itself, there are numbers of regulation. But there is one good thing. What all these regulations are looking for? Good data, so that the investors and the brands can take informed decision. So what are those data? For us, these data are about energy consumption, water consumption, material consumption, and so on. So we need to first understand that all the regulations are looking for these data. So this capacity development is very, very important at this moment. Another point is like about the tier 2 factories, electricity consumption. We see that a lot dependency on grid electricity. But as per our understanding, this is right maybe because of the only electricity. But thermal energy that is used for boiler and then others compressor, these contribute more than 50% or 60% for the total energy demand. Electricity is very minimum here. So if we really would like to focus on green transition, we need to look into this thermal area, rather not looking at the grid only, because grid is very, very minimum here. Right. Another point I would like to mention here is that what Mr. Tabi said about and also the recycling, etc., etc. This is very, very important. On the other hand, we are seeing that 60% of our cotton waste we are sending out for recycling. Why we can't use our own waste for our own recycling premises at the first place? So of course we should get some waste from outside to secure feedstock, but before that we need to secure that what are the waste we are generating at our place, we are handling them properly. We are sending them out, we are converting them into yarn and importing again. Why don't we develop our own capacity to recycle it by ourselves? So these are the things very, very important to look at. And of course the just transition that Appa already mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your points, and thank you. You also took part in our expert consultations, and your input has been very useful for preparation of this report. I think I should come back to the head table because we are running out of time. I would, before I go back to Her Excellency, I would give 2 minutes to Azim Bhai to respond to some queries.
Thank you. First of all, I'll reply to our women leaders. She was telling about the contract-based service. In fact, our labor law, there is nothing about the contract service. It was earlier 30 years before. Right now, no contract-based service. Number 2, due to the social development and the employment in the village areas, so new workers, women workers are not in fact coming like earlier. Number 3, the automations. we have to go with the global requirement. We cannot ignore the invention, global requirement. So, of course, we have to go for the skill development, skill and upskilling. We have to go for it. And government, we, the buyers, everybody has to take the initiatives to develop our workers. And after the women, they work, in fact, from the age of 18 to 35. And after that, they go back to the village. They want to join with the family. We have nothing from our side that after 35, we won't take and the women working in our factories. Rather, we encourage them, we insist them, or we are trying to make the skill development so they could come forward with automation things. They can upgrade themselves, something like AutoCAD, something like jacket, the sweaters, jacket, the machineries nowadays. So all are computerized. We have to go for the training for them, the government, we, our buyers and the brands, they are all the stakeholders, they also come forward for this one. And number two, I would like to reply minimum wage. Somebody was telling about the minimum wage. Okay, as you know, the minimum wage is under process right now. It's going to announce very soon, might be by next month. Almost the session was finished, and which is a tripartite decisions, work between workers, entrepreneurs, government, and all they're taking care of it. And His Excellency was telling that about 8,000 taka salary. I think you should know that it is the starting at the 7th grade. After 6 months, they go for 10 or 12,000 taka. Their take home is not less than 12,000 taka. Over that, every year they have 5% incentive. It's automatic. Every year, minimum 5% incentive. So we know that they have to get the good payment, which is also the responsibility of the vendor buyers. They should also come forward, all the beneficiaries of these industries. So we also want to pay more to our workers, of course, because inflation and all. So if they can live right way, they can make more productions, is also benefit for us. So I think the thing is under control and under the discussion of the government and the tripartite, the people there, the wage commissions, they are doing this job. And the last one, I think MNS, they asked for that circular economy, and this question has to be started in the factory. Yes, it's a not so easy job. We already started in some recycle hub, which is very expensive, and we need the technology support as well as fund. Every year, about 400,000 tons of pre-consumer waste, either we have to use for landfilling or burn it out. Both are the environment hazardous. So we have to come out for this one, and if we go for the recycle, I think we can make more yarn, fresh yarn from it, and after 2025, there is some legislation from the European Union and some other customers. We have to use at least 25% recycled goods, for which we are preparing ourselves. You cannot make it overnight, but we are already on it, and we are trying to discuss with all our stakeholders, partners, how can we resolve this issue for the circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words and the responses you've made. I think one of the important issues we also wanted to highlight, along with greening, is that social development, that is the workers' welfare. And of course, there are many facilities, as you have mentioned, that the salaries and what type of benefits they are getting. But we also recognize the fact that the increasing inflationary pressure is really stifling the fixed income group, people who are who are within the bracket of low income or fixed income group, and there is an urgent need for increasing and revising the wages, and I think sooner the better. We are looking forward to the packages which are going to be offered and which have already been placed on the table, but we look forward to the committee recommendations, and we hope that the demand of the workers will be fulfilled, because a just transition also means that an equitable transition where everyone will get their fair share. We recognize that this is not possible overnight, but we can at least it grew gradually and attempt at least. So with these words, I would now like to come back to the discussion.
Just one quick request to our Honorable Minister, because we will not get chance always. We heard about the access to finance. Sir, I would like to request on behalf of all of our suppliers to secure access to green electricity.
Green electricity.
Even with money, our suppliers can't get the access to green electricity. We need a power purchase policy that is private to private, so that our supplier can buy green electricity from private entities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good demand and recommendation, probably. So I will just turn to Her Excellency Ms. Alexandra Berg von Linde, Ambassador, Embassy of Sweden, Bangladesh. Thank you very much for for waiting patiently, but I hope that time has been spent worth, because a lot of good discussions and useful discussions and queries have come. So I would like to request you to make your remarks.
Chief Guest, Dr. Shamsul Alam, Honorable State Minister, Ministry of Planning, fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, friends in the media, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for being with us here today. Sweden är på koteke apnader showaike ushno shubecha. This week, the Swedish Nobel Committee announces the Nobel Prizes, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to quote Rabindranath Tagore, the eternal bard of Bengal, who 110 years ago this year was the first ever non-European to receive the Nobel Prize in Literature. He said, "One cannot cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water." So what relevance does this have to our discussions today? Well, I think many of you have made the point about collective action, and really we can't achieve our goals or create the change unless we work hard and take proper action to get to the other side of the sea, or make a transition happening. Sustainability has been a priority for my country during a long time, and I just wanted to start but by emphasizing what many others have emphasized today, that sustainability for us is holistic. So you cannot look at the environmental, the economic side without looking at the social side and the working conditions, for instance, of workers. This is all part of a holistic view of sustainability. Contributing to a just and green transition, and especially within the RMG sector in Bangladesh, is a focus area for us, both from a development perspective but also from a trade perspective. And we hope that the findings of the CPD study can contribute to a better understanding of where change is needed to ultimately accelerate the progress in a green and sustainable transition of the RMG sector here. As we have heard, the textile sector is of immense strategic and socio-economic importance for Bangladesh. And for us, we have many Swedish brands that are trusted partners of Bangladesh, but also front runners when it comes to sustainable thinking. Swedish companies have implemented ambitious climate goals, which will make it important to reform the global supply chain. And the possibilities to promote sustainable practices, to reuse, reduce, and recycle under a circular business model is very large. In that context, let me also briefly mention an initiative that we launched during last year. It's called the Sustainable Fashion Platform by Sweden. And for us, this serves as an umbrella for coordinating and joining stakeholders' efforts within a green and sustainable transition of the RMG sector in Bangladesh, and partner up with Bangladesh in this aspect. So the topic for today is important for a number of reasons. Firstly, and as has already been mentioned, green investments in the RMG and textile sector are critical. Unsustainable use of natural resources and pollution contribute to climate change, to health problems, and loss of biodiversity. So green investments are not only necessary to minimize the negative impacts on the environment and communities and workers, but also for Bangladesh to remain globally competitive as the demands from global buyers are shifting. And there the EU ambassador made some relevant remarks about upcoming legislation from the European Union. Suppliers' ability to adopt green business models throughout all aspects of textile and garment production will ultimately be business critical and a major factor for purchasing decisions going forward. And a lot of progress has, of course, already been made, especially for larger suppliers that have invested in renewable energy solutions, green certifications, and skill development. Smaller factories that are not directly in contact with international buyers are to a certain extent lagging behind and face challenges in terms of awareness, access to skills, technology, and finance. My second point, we note that while some investments in skill development are made, they fall short of the needs and do not benefit all workers. And as oftentimes, there is a gender dimension in there. The ratio of women workers in the textile and RMG sector is declining, as we heard. Opportunities for skill development and career advancements are limited for women, given, for instance, social norms, workplace harassment, and the pressure of household chores. With automation and green practices on the rise, the demand for a skilled labor force is increasing, and the RMG sector in this regard is in need of new skills to stay relevant. In this context, we cannot afford to leave half of the population behind in the green transition. My third and last point. The findings presented by CPD today confirms really what we actually already know. To make progress, a joint effort is required. The green transition will only happen if there are enough incentives to change. This includes a conducive policy environment with rules and regulatory frameworks in place and being enforced, as well as economic incentives and access to finance and to support. And it requires a multi-stakeholder approach. Suppliers, buyers, policymakers, financial institutions, academia, think tanks, media, civil society, and development partners need to each play a part to make sure that it is easy and profitable to invest in a greener future for the RMG sector. So there is a choice to be made. We can remain stranded staring at the water, or join hands, work hard, and cross the sea, because we collectively realize that it is a worthwhile effort to reach cleaner and more fair shores. Dhonnobad, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dhonnobad, Her Excellency, Ms. Alexandra Berg von Linde, for your encouraging words and insightful, very insightful indeed. You have highlighted many initiatives and also very well you have articulated very well the need for greening and the sustainability and the perspectives from the Swedish point of view. Now I would turn to our chief guest, Dr. Shamsul Alam, Honorable State Minister for Ministry of Planning, Government of Bangladesh, for your remarks, and I guess you also will address some of the questions posed to you. So over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Fahmida, and I thank first of all the presenter for presenting a thorough study, I should say, specifying the requirements to go with greening the manufacturing industry, particularly garments industry. So I thank Her Excellency Mrs. Alexandra Berg Bonlinde. Not only thank she is present here, I thank for supporting this very important research study. And Charles Whiteley, he already left, as he said, he will be joining a meeting in Foreign Ministry. And Mr. is he present? This Oudstra, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who spoke here. Yeah, very good. And Fahmida Khatun, who gave a detailed introduction about what we are here for, and she briefed about the broad study before the presentation of the study with the key, who was Muntasir Kamal, who prepared this study on behalf of CPD. And you all know COP 2050 actually espoused for zero emission by 2050, and EU 27 countries, they also claim for to be having zero emission by 2050. Particularly, I know Germany actually, they are taking steps. They go with renewable energy, and they will be free from even nuclear power stations. They will be free from coal-used power projects there. They like to be, fully with zero emission country by 2050. You all know Bangladesh aimed for to be a upper middle income country by 2031, and we have will be a 1 trillion economy by 2032, meaning that we have a clear dream and path to go with having these milestone targets, and we'll make the country a smart and developed one by 2041. You all know this is with our usual planning process, and beyond that we formulated Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100, you all know, to encounter and mitigate, I should say, the climate adversaries we face, as Bangladesh, one of the disaster-prone country, and in 21st century, Bangladesh is the only country amongst, I should say, particularly amongst the delta countries, who have a clear roadmap how to go with, sustainable development, handling climate change issues. And having all this in the planning perspective, still I should say Dhaka is one of the most polluted city you all know, like Bombay and even like Delhi. So we need to address this. And in the 8th five-year plan, we actually clearly enunciated how we will go with green growth. And for that, actually, we are emphasizing taking actions by our Minister of Environment, who actually prepared their national adaptation plan during this 8th five-year plan, detailing how they will go with green growth and how will help ameliorate our environmental pollution and other things. And we are in the verge of preparing 9th five-year plan very soon. We have taken steps. So this is the right time to have this kind of a study because we need to address climate change issues. We need to go with greening our economy. Certainly we will emphasize again in the 9th five-year plan. So this study particularly covering our big industry, I mean manufacturing part of our industry sector. This manufacturing sector contributes to, almost 84% of our industrial sector. So this is very important, and if we can go with greening measures and action plans in this sector, certainly we'll have a great leap forward, I think. And certainly we'll take lessons, measures as suggested in this study while we'll be preparing 9th five-year plan, and we'll be presenting in due course what steps, what strategies we'll be developing, what steps will be taken. So we'll share it with CPD and other think tanks, those who are involved with environmental issues. Certainly will take their opinion and big stakeholders in environmental issue is factories, investors, BGMEA, no doubt, in the manufacturing sector, and workers there, those who work in there, buyers, and overall citizens of the country, I think, is big stakeholders in the issue of greening our factories. And it is very heartening to know that out of 15 green factories, well-certified green factories, we have 13 in Bangladesh. It's quite good, but this is only, I should say, insignificant number if I say, considering the whole number of manufacturing, garments. As I know, if I'm not very wrong, about 4,000 farms we have, or factories we have producing.
Out of top 15, 13 in Bangladesh.
No, that is, you said, 15 out of top 15, 13 actually located in Bangladesh. The same, I said, very heartening to listen. But is this, say about the whole 4,500 factories working in this sector. But anyway, certainly it is good that 13 out of 15 top green factories, we have 13, no doubt about that. Meaning Bangladesh is trying to go with green manufacturing, though as this study they said we lack integrated green industry transition policy. So I would urge, if it is possible, I have not gone through the whole report and I don't know what is there. So if you provide green industry transition policy, I can assure, because I will oversee the preparation of the 9th five-year plan. So certainly we can reflect in our 9th five-year plan. I can say that, and I can assure you. So with this, general introduction, I will touch upon on some points raised in this study. So let me have my views, as I perceive in this study. This study, this sector is dominated by micro factories, as they call it, micro factories, small, medium factories, large factories. So large factories only comprise 21%. So a big chunk is with the micro and small factories. And as I understand, getting a report from this study, the large factories actually adopt green measures, and this, which is also very good to know. But bigger portion is small and medium and micro factories. So if we can't bring them into the fold of greening their factories, then we'll remain even outside to have the wholesome change of green in the industry. So this need to be taken into consideration how we can actually elude these micro factories or small medium enterprises to go with green factories. What sort of policy support is needed, policy support in terms of fiscal incentives, what we can do, we need to know. So if we get suggestions from this study, certainly we'll think of writing those or reflecting those in our 9th five-year plan. And they classified the industries tier 1, tier 2, RMG, tier 3. Tier 1 actually, only very small segment, I should say, 8%, 7.6, say 8% of industries fall into this category. Those who are located in EPZs with direct foreign buyer relations. So in the international price making, they actually have a big role. And the tier 2, tier 3, they are outside EPZs, both tier 2 and tier 3 RNGs. You see only 8% in the tier 1, meaning those who are in the EPZs, if I say. So it is easier to go or implement or enforce regulations when they are in EPZ. So those farms or factories, say tier 2, tier 3, if they are spread, about the whole country or here and there, enforcement is a bit, clumsier, certainly. So how to bring them all in, and as I say, in EPZ type areas. So that would be very good to oversee and implement regulations, rules, whether they're using effluent treatment policies, all this. So I don't know why, I did not have any idea before that. So big chunk actually outside EPZs, though we have so many EPZs nowadays. We are going with establishing 100 EPZs in the country. 30 will be, as we said, will be completed by 2030. The other point, again, I would say, awareness of green certification. You see, only large factories, they have, who are only 21% of the whole industry, all manufacturing sector. 81% they are aware of knowledge about green certificates. 81%, but that you are very sounding very good. They are only 15% of the total industry. Large factories, if I correctly understand here. They are only 21%, mind that. So they have good knowledge, obviously, but 58% building general awareness. 58% remain outside of, outside. They don't have clear or full knowledge of green certification issues. So here, BGMA can play a big role, I understand, making them aware, providing them training, or, it's their part and role they should play, as I understand. Workers' knowledge on green practices, factories, again, large industries, they have 99% are aware. So but they are only 21% of the whole industry sector. Anyway, next point I want to touch. Average green investment in last 5 years per factory. You see, large factories invested 37% of their total investment on greening measures. But small and medium farmers, they invest very lower amount. Small and medium farmers, average green investment in last 5 years, total investment is 37. Of that, small and medium factories invested 44%, and micro enterprises 53% of total investment. on average green investment. Meaning, if I understand correctly, or if I get the issue correctly, even micro and small medium farmers are trying to invest in greening their factories. So I should say, it's a good sign, and it's nothing to be discouraged. They need to be encouraged. So in that sense, I think there is overall general awareness about the greening issue. That's a very good thing, I must say, and I'm hopeful that whole sector of this manufacturing would certainly go with greening their factories. The other issue, barriers for greening factories, barriers, as they said, as the presenter, policy and regulatory barriers. Actually, it needs clarification. Again, of course, there is, I believe, in the text, but it needs to be clarified because we need to understand as a policy maker or as an implementer, because market efficiency, market economic efficiency is very much needed with regulatory measures, with enforcement. So we need to know exactly the regulatory barriers where we are facing all these. So otherwise, market efficiency will be difficult to attain. Other point is the existing environmental policy framework needs to clearly define goals for farms to follow sustainable practices, which has led to insufficient implementation regulations. Insufficient implementation regulations. Actually, which are those? It's not clear, at least by reading this. We need to know that as a policymaker, we will go with making the plan, as I said earlier. So we need to clearly more policy support, incentives for encouraging investment in large-scale renewable energy generation must be provided. It is true for the whole economy, but still, how we can provide that? We support. We have fiscal policy, particularly as mentioned by our what is his name? Shahidullah Azim. He said that they get incentives, they pay lower corporate tax if they go with green measures. So that's a fiscal incentive. Of course, government provide that. So government is sensitive and aware of how to go with greening and already provide fiscal support, having lower corporate tax by the green factories. And regulatory and policy uncertainty. Of course, there is uncertainty maybe. Whole economy actually run through uncertainty. Economy always, every business is risk taker. Risk is there because there is uncertainty. So regulatory and policy uncertainty, again, I would urge, give us clearly steps, measures, and how this is uncertain, regulatory. Tell us, certainly we'll try to take up as a suggestion. Mind that 5-year plan is the flagship document of the government because they prepare budget, they allocate money according to 5-year plans, as we have allocation for every year, for every sector, for ministries. So we need to know actually clearly those policy uncertainties as we can address there in terms of policy measures. So need to be clarified with examples. And the other point you raised, the absence of market-driven incentives acts as significant impediment to farms embracing sustainable practices. Market-driven incentives, what do you mean? Incentive is the price, what you get internationally. And so price is the actual incentive to them, market-driven incentives. And other incentives in terms of production, you go with bonded warehouse facilities, so government provide you incentives. You buy inputs with international price, and you don't need to pay taxes when you use bonded warehouse facilities. So incentives there on the part of the government. So what market-driven incentives more you want, we need to know. The absence of premium prices for green products in the textile and RMG sector poses a substantial barrier to adopting environmentally friendly. Very, very true, and you already have spoken before our Charles Whitley, before our ambassador, our Excellency, our Swedish ambassador. And this is a genuine issue. If you go with green products, you know, it's certainly healthy products, so why you should not pay more? So how this can be resolved, what market influence you have, what market share you have in the internal market, many things depends on that. So certainly you can claim that, and when they say about our, encourage to go with greening, certainly they should pay for more, for that. And buyer's attitude, preference of garments, nowadays, as I understand, I mean, he can say more, Abdullah Azim, that buyers now prefer MMF, I mean, man-made fiber things. So why they prefer that? Man-made fiber certainly not so healthy as of natural fiber, as of cotton. But they can say it is easily washable. This kind of products do not need ironing. So how can it be man-made fiber can be environmentally? Those are artificial fibers. Those will not be decomposed with the soil. It has some problem. Why not? Natural things require cotton, quite perishable, quite. If you mixed with water, mixed with soil, it will get decomposed very soon. But would that be same with nylon and other, other denim things? So there's a contradiction, I understand, why that kind of thing, I mean, how you address that kind of MMF is not this attitude contrary to the green products. So nowadays they prefer to be, their environment allow them to go using nylon socks, nylon shirts, but in warm countries, those who sweat very much, it's not healthy to go with nylon things or viscose or something like that. I don't know if you know better, but it's a general understanding. My understanding is this is not consistent with the greening things. And one lady raised the question of, a question of their labor rights and other things, other facilities. And as I heard or I gathered from this study, in general, workers are aware of greening the things, as I heard, but still training may be needed. BGME should provide training to workers, making them aware of our health issues, making them aware of greening, importance of greening, and they need to be discussed clearly about their rights and their privileges. They need to be clearly known that. So BGME can provide training facilities for them with their corporate responsibility fund. And this study also could shed light to this issue. One asked me, dollar depreciation, I want to ask them, they are not, the dollar prices, fluctuating dollar prices actually harm them. But as I understand, 27% of depreciation actually meaning they get 27% more prices than what it should be, what it had been. Say $1 when it was $86, now you get $110. So the exporters are most get benefit from this devaluation. So, but having benefit of bonded warehouse, they also get benefit. While you sell, you get the depreciated price. So this depreciation actually helped this industry to grow, I think. So I believe due to this, your growth will be continuing. As an economist, as I understand that much. How government can help attain green certification industries? Well, government can go with enforcement, government can formulate regulations, so we'll get some directions, some, practices will be suggested in this study, and certainly they will hand this study to Planning Commission. Certainly we will keep in mind how we can take up all their suggestions.
Access to green electricity.
Green electricity, is we are emphasizing renewable energy nowadays very much, and gradually, specifically we said in our 8th five-year plan that by 2025 we will have 10% of total electricity energy generation by renewable energy, but we could not attain that. In the 9th five-year plan, we will have more strong suggestions, more commitment by the government to go with renewable energy. That's the way we need to go with, as we will be emphasizing green economy in our next plan also. So we are quite mindful of that. So we are not unmindful of that, we're mindful of that. I think the issues, it got my attention. I discussed green-related certification, other issue last, providing premium price of products from green factories. Well, I already touched on this topic. And creating a comprehensive system for accessing green financing programs is good, but provide us ready to use the comprehensive program as we can reflect in the plan. I'm quite happy that you raised this question. And establishing green skills development fund this should be done by the industry. As I said, they should provide training facilities. They should make them, there are no health issues, health hazard issues, safety issues. They must train them on that. So I wish to end here, and in the context of this paper, whatever got my attention, I tried to explain as it is possible. Bangla bolle eta holo ei যে আমরা এই গ্রিন গ্রোথ নীতিটা এমন একটা সময় এটা স্টাডিটা করা হয়েছে যেটা আমি মনে করি সিবিডি অত্যন্ত একটা টাইমলি সময় মতো একটা অধ্যয়ন করেছে, যে আমরা 9th ফাইভ-ইয়ার প্ল্যান তৈরি করতে যাচ্ছি, এবং এমন একটা সেক্টর নিয়ে করেছে যেটা আমাদের হোল ইন্ডাস্ট্রি সেক্টরের প্রায় 85%। সো আমরা যে সবুজায়ন করতে চাই, এই 85%কে আগে যেতে, কেবল সবুজায়ন নয়, এখানে পলিউশনের অনেক সোর্স আছে, কেমিক্যালস ইউজ করে, বাইরে কেমিক্যাল ছেড়ে দেয়, তো জমি জমা ক্ষতি হচ্ছে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে, আমরা নিজেরাই দেখি। তো সেক্ষেত্রে এই স্টাডিটা আমি মনে করি খুব টাইমলি হয়েছে এবং অত্যন্ত ধন্যবাদ দিই বিশেষভাবে আমরা সুইডিশ এমবেসি বা সুইডেন গভর্নমেন্টকে এটা সাপোর্ট করার জন্য। এবং এটা অত্যন্ত, আমি যেটা বুঝেছি, আবার ইংরেজি শব্দ সাকসিংটা একটা অত্যন্ত স্পষ্ট স্পেসিফিকলি অনেকগুলো প্রবলেম সামনে নিয়ে আসছে। তো সেখান থেকে আমি লেসন ড্র করা আমাদের জন্য অনেক বিষয় আছে, এটা আমাদেরকে নবম পঞ্চবার্ষিক পরিকল্পনার সহায়তা করবে। আরেকটা হলো সবসময় যেটা আমরা বলি যে এনফোর্সমেন্ট রেগুলেশন, এটা সবসময় গভর্নেন্স ইস্যু, তো এটা সবচেয়ে কঠিন ইস্যুও। এবং এনফোর্সমেন্ট অ্যান্ড রেগুলেশন ঠিকমতো হলে আমাদের বাজার অর্থনীতি কাজ করে। বাজার অর্থনীতির ফুল পোটেনশিয়াল আমরা নিতে পারবো না যদি এনফোর্সমেন্ট রেগুলেশন ঠিক মতন না হয়। কারণ বাজারকে নিয়ন্ত্রণ করা নয়, সহযোগিতা করা হলো সরকারের দায়িত্ব। তো সেখানে বাজার যাতে কাজ করতে পারে এবং বাজারের কাজকর্মে যাতে পরিবেশের প্রভাব খারাপ না পড়ে, সেইটা দেখা সরকারের দায়িত্ব। সেক্ষেত্রে বাজারের কোনো রকমের খবরদারি না করে বাজারকে সহযোগিতা করা এবং একটা কী বলব প্রতিযোগিতামূলক বাজার কাঠামোর মধ্যে যেন সবাই কাজ করে, সেটা দেখা সরকারের দায়িত্ব। আর গার্মেন্ট ইন্ডাস্ট্রিটা আমাদের ইকোনমির লাইফ লাইন। এখনও আমরা এটার বৈচিত্র্যায়নের চেষ্টা করছি রপ্তানিকে, এবং গার্মেন্টসের যে প্রাইস ফরমেশন, এটা সরকার প্রাইস নির্ধারণ করে দিতে পারে না, সরকার প্রাইস চাইতেও পারে না। এটা ইন্ডাস্ট্রি চাবে, ইন্ডাস্ট্রি বার্গেন করবে, এবং সেটা করতে হবে যারা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল বায়ার আছে, এবং তাদেরকেও ভালো পণ্য চাইতে হলে এবং সবুজায়নের অর্থাৎ সবারই কনসার্ন এখন যে বিশ্বে আমরা জলবায়ুর বিরূপ প্রভাবে আছি, তো সেক্ষেত্রে বায়ারদের জন্য সেটা তৈরি থাকতে হবে এই প্রিমিয়াম প্রাইস দেওয়ার জন্য, বায়ারদেরকে এটা বুঝতে হবে। তো সেটা পারস্পরিক নেগোসিয়েশন, সেখানে সরকার কি করবে? সরকার একমাত্র সহায়তা করতে পারে এই সবুজায়ন করাটার ব্যাপারে আইন কানুন নীতি প্র্যাকটিসে, যেটা আমি বললাম যে আমরা উদাহরণটা নেব যেগুলো পাই। কিন্তু শিল্পকেও এখন আর এই শিল্পের বিকাশের জন্য যে করা হয়েছে, ডলারের যেটা অবমূল্যায়ন করতে হয়েছে আমাদের, এটা আমরা পুরো এই রপ্তানি খাতকে সহায়তা দেওয়ার জন্যই মূলত করা হয়েছে এবং করতে হয়েছে, আমাদের অর্থনৈতিক বাস্তবতাই করতে হয়েছে। তো এর পূর্ণ সুযোগটা কিন্তু আমাদের রপ্তানি পাবেন। কাজে এখানে তাদের প্রণোদনার একটা বড় সুযোগ রয়ে গেছে। বরং এই এত ডিভালুয়েশনের সময় তার ভিন্ন প্রণোদনা দেওয়ার আর সুযোগ থাকে কি না সে প্রশ্নটা থেকে যায়। বরং এই ডিভালুয়েশনটাই তাদের জন্য সবচেয়ে বড় প্রণোদনা আমি মনে করি। আমি কি শেষ করতে পারি ফাহমিদা? এই তো না, আর কিছু কি বলার আছে? তো ধন্যবাদ সকলকে। আসলে আমি বলি অত্যন্ত একটা ভালো স্টাডি সিপিডি করেছে, ইউজফুল এর পলিসি মেকিংয়ের জন্য, তাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। ধন্যবাদ সকলকে।
ধন্যবাদ, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। আই থিঙ্ক আমার আর ক্লোজিং রিমার্ক দেওয়ার কোনো অবকাশ নেই। আমরা উই হ্যাভ ডিসকাসড a lot of recommendations and insights have come, and we understand that recommendations have to be also at a granular level so that specific actions can be taken by the policymakers and relevant actors. So with these, and once again thank you very much all my distinguished guests here and in front of me, and the friends from the media, colleagues from various organizations. Thank you once again, and in the whole process many of you have taken part and helped us. Once again thank you very much. So with this I would like to end this dialogue today, but we would like to request you to have lunch with us. Thank you. Stay well.